about 10 from each. I am going to put a disclaimer, though, that some of the words is not kid-friendly, so, yeah. Yeah. So Native Moments, for those that have not read it yet, it is it's been kind of labeled like a surf fiction. It is a surf trip. A couple guys from Costa Rica go out there, but it's more than just I think there's very little surfing for it to be like a surf book. It's a coming of age, 20-year-old kid trying to figure out his way around the world. So he sets off to Costa Rica with a buddy of his to try to figure out what he's going to do. He wanted to see how long $1,000 could last. This part I'm going to read, though. He's already been there for a while, and he's starting to come into his own. As they're heading back, he actually is learning to surf a little bit better than when he first got there. And for him, that's a big deal. You know, he was kind of nervous getting out there and things like that. So he's starting to come into his own. They're coming back from a little trip that they did, and they come across this rodeo, this Costa Rican rodeo. So that's another thing I really wanted to do with Native Moments, was capture a moment in time of Costa Rica. For those that haven't been there, if you have been there, you know what I'm talking about. That the area is quickly changing. You know, this is set in '99. It's kind of the tail end of the Wild West of Costa Rica. Now it's becoming very, I don't want to say Western. What was it?
Upscale.
Yeah. You know, I went back last year and I was blown away by the changes. You know, where this book is set, there was dirt roads and, you know, it was out there. It was country living, and when I went back, it's all paved roads, and they've got high, what's that word?
High rise.
High rises, thank you. High rises out there, and it was a really different feel. They do still have these country rodeos that take place, though. So as they were passing by the small village earlier, they saw them setting up these bleachers, and on the way home, they come back, and there's this full-scale event going on. So I was hoping to capture, you know, a little bit of the culture of the country as well, not just about the characters. So this is them coming back. It says, the sun set as they drove back to Tamarindo through the small village where the ring and bleachers were now constructed, and the town was in the midst of a fiesta. Villagers flocked around a makeshift arena and overflowed the seats. The little ones hung on the side of the stands with just enough room to perch on one leg, just high enough to see over the crowd. Where the hell did all these people come from, Jake said. Greg pulled the car off the road. Let's go see, Sanch said. 4 men at the base of the bleachers facing the center of the ring pounded a melodic, up-tempo beat on the conga drums as a group of young girls in brightly ruffled dresses danced center ring. The crowd clapped along, and the 3 Americans jostled for a better view, making their way to the edge of the ring. The dance ended, and the girls exited. Greg spoke Spanish to one of the bystanders. The old man put his hands to his head to make horns and scurried under the fence, and the onlookers shouted as the old man raced to the center and acted like a bull before exiting. It's a rodeo, Greg said. The drums started again in a slower tempo, and when they stopped, bottle rockets whistled in the air and burst, and the crowd erupted and cheered. From an open chute exited a cowboy gripped tightly on top of a ton of a beast. The bull twirled and bucked, and at times lifting all 4 feet off the ground. And the cowboy somehow managed to hold on for what seemed much longer than the American tradition of 8 seconds. He then launched off and landed solidly on his feet as if he were a gymnast, hat still firmly on his head. He waved his hat to the crowd, and the crowd showered him with flowers. He exited as the bull continued bucking, and instead of rodeo clowns entering to lead the animal to the holding stables, the crowd swarmed over and under the fence as if the home team of a college football game had just won the national championship. And instead of tearing down the goalpost, they harassed the bull. These people are insane, Jake said. Let's go inside, Sanch said. Well, you guys have fun, Greg told him. Sanch ducked through the fence. Jake hesitantly followed. So Sanch is the main character, and all up until this point, Sanch was kind of the follower, like Jake's apprentice. So this is the first time that he gets to lead Jake, and Jake follows. The bull stood on either side of the ring, yet people were running and falling in every direction. One man snuck up slowly behind the standing bull and jumped on for a quick ride before falling to the ground, rolling underneath the fence to safety. The bull circled the ring in a slow trot, and the crowd cheered louder. Sanch and Jake stayed close to the fence. The bull stopped center ring and turned his head, setting his eyes in the direction of the gringos. "He's coming for us," Jake said. The bull continued to stare down, and the crowd grew restless. Inside the ring, men were hitting the bull in the haunch to try and evoke some emotion. And after 30 seconds or so, the bull feigned a charge, which riled the crowd. And Sanch jerked but settled down when he saw there was no danger. Jake didn't. He bolted out of the ring, having dropped and rolled under the fence. The drums beat again, and the crowd emptied back to the outside of the ring. And Sanch turned and saw Jake standing on the bottom rung of the fence, peering over the top. "When'd you leave the ring?" "As soon as that motherfucker looked our way," Jake said. He made room for Sanch to stand next to him. 4 men holding red capes entered the ring. "That's Jesus," Sanch said. "Damn sure is, isn't it?" Jake said. The maintenance man from the abrigo posted up in front of the bull, shook the cape, and when the bull did nothing, he shuffled closer. He shook the cape again, and the bull charged. And Jesus twirled as the bull came within inches of him, and the crowd cheered. And the bull then went after another man who held a cape, and this continued for a few passes, and with every charge, the bull was closer to the holding stables until Jesus and the 3 caped men could surround the bull and lead him away as a docile, tired creature. "Jesus is a maniac," Sanch said, "and you bitched out when the bull looked at you. Did you see them horns?" Jake said. I'm looking at the kids. "Did you see them horns?" Jake said. "Yeah, I've had a chick's middle finger up my ass, and that's about as big as I want to take." "Wait, you let a chick finger your asshole?" "Went knuckle deep, baby." Sanch shook his head and looked away. And then he looked back at Jake and shook his head again. And Jake laughed. "Hey, don't knock it, man." Your kid.
Well, that explains a lot. Should the kids leave the room now?
Oh no, that's it now. It's not getting any worse than this.
That's as
Until
bad
we
as
read
it gets,
this.
so we're good until we read the next one.
Alright, I'm back to normal. Alright. So then
They don't listen.
they don't listen to adults anyway.
No,
There was a
they got
at the beginning of the Jane's Addiction album, Ritual to Habitual, there's a section in there where he speaks it in Spanish.
Yeah.
And I think there's paraphrasing a little bit.
What did your mom do with your Jane's Addiction album?
Yeah, she tossed it. But there's a part in there that he says at the beginning in Spanish. He says, basically I'm paraphrasing, but he says, "Hey parents, I have way more influence over you than you over your kids than you ever will." Well, my mom did not like it. But luckily,
Very
Elvis
feral.
at East Hill CD, I could easily go back and get another one for like $3. So. All
I
right.
love it.
All right, so the next bull bucked wilder than the first. In a matter of seconds, the cowboy slammed his forehead into the back of the bull's head, and his lifeless body flew through the air. The crowd gasped. But when the cowboy hit the ground, he was quick to his feet, and the crowd shouted with delight as he left the ring, waving his hat with one hand and holding a bloody gash with the other. The bull continued his rampage around the ring, and the people weren't so quick to join in on this one, though. A few brave men ran out, and the bull gave chase, allowing for a few more men to enter. As the bull wore down, more people entered, including Sanch and Jake. Sanch and Jake made their way to Jesus. He was pleased to see them, and he gave them both hugs. They could also smell the liquor on his breath. "Crazy," Sanch said to Jesus. "Yes, yes," Jesus said. Sanch didn't think he understood. "You try." "What?" Sanch said. "You try." Jesus handed the cape to Sanch. "Yeah, you try," Jake said. Jesus slung the cape over Sanch's shoulder, and Jesus laughed. "Ole, ole," he said. And just like the stove, now he wants to laugh at us getting horned. "No thank you," Jake said, and climbed out of the ring. The bull came around, and Jesus led Sanch by the arm as they walked alongside the bull. And Jesus laid a hand on the bull and continued a tight grip on Sanch's elbow. And in the best English you could put together, Jesus informed Sanch that a bull couldn't make sharp turns. "So come on, here, touch here," Jesus said. And he grabbed Sanch's hand, and he moved it onto the bull. The crowd cheered, and Sanch looked around. And he pumped a fist in the air, and the crowd roared with delight. Jesus then smacked the bull hard, and the bull bucked, and Sanch ran towards the fence, and the crowd laughed. Another Tico came up behind the bull and grabbed him by the tail. The bull dragged him for a few feet before slowing. and Jesus grabbed Sanch by the forearm again, and he replaced the cape over his shoulder. "No," Sanch said, trying to pull away, and Jesus laughed. "I'm sorry, I don't do it again." And he led Sanch closer to the bull. "The tail," Jesus said. "Grab the tail." "No," Sanch said. See, it's okay." Jesus grabbed it, and he instructed Sanch to follow, and Sanch did, and the crowd cheered. Jesus slapped the bull again, and the crowd laughed when the bull reared up as if it had been pricked with a pin, and he kicked his hind legs back, causing Sanch to fall backward, unhurt. And he looked up from the dusty ground, and Jesus motioned frantically for him to stay down. The bull turned and headed for Sanch, and Sanch backpedaled in an odd crab walk, trying to get up. But Jesus motioned with his hands for Sanch to cover his head. The crowd sucked in the air as the bull closed in on him. And he balled up, tucked his knees into his chest, and covered his head with his arms. The bullhorn slammed on either side of him, digging into the ground. Sanch could feel the hot breath and the warm snot blowing from Sanch's nose, while he remained in the fetal position as the bull snorted and pushed him around in the dirt and gravel, trying to find the correct angle to puncture the shirtless torso. Sanch stayed in a tight ball, and rolling on the ground for a few long seconds before the bull got bored. And Jesus ran to Sanch and helped him to his feet. Another guy wasn't as lucky. A horn caught his pant leg and cartwheeled him 10 feet in the air, and he landed hard but quickly regained his footing and scurried out of the ring. The bull turned back to face Sanch and Jesus grabbed Sanch's wrist and held Sanch firmly, not allowing him to escape. But then the bull charged, and Sanch broke free and ran to the nearest railing. The crowd reached down and pulled him up. They cheered and shouted and rubbed his head as if he were a celebrity. 2 people held him, one by each arm from under his armpit, and another stretched over top of him, gripping onto the waist of his shorts. The crowd's cheers turned from celebration to fear, and Sanch looked over and saw the bull heading for him. He lifted his legs just as the bull slammed into the fence below him, and the bull backed away and then rammed the fence harder, each time getting closer to Sanch's black-soled feet. The bull smashed into the fence 2 more times before moving on, and the crowd dropped Sanch back into the ring, where he was bombarded with hugs and handshakes from the men. Jesus patted Sanch on the back and gave him 2 thumbs up, and the crowd exited the ring, and the 3 men with capes walked to the center. Jesus had recovered the cape and offered it back to Sanch, but Sanch waved him off. "No, I've had enough," Sanch said. All right. So that ends that passage from Native Moments.